Everybody and welcome to Forever Red Devils. Manchester United nil, Arsenal 2, and a game which really demonstrated a lot of the issues that have Manchester United still have, despite there being some progress in the last couple of weeks. But once again, up here continues to be a problem. A game where Manchester United did really well tactically in the first half to go into half time 0-0 and to be really, really competitive. Yes, maybe not creating chances, but to be fair, I think we'd actually gone there to try and probably get a draw, try and get a result, and to keep Arsenal at bay, a side that has been scoring goals for fun. And we did that in the first half. And then in the second half, we conceded a goal, and once again, that old lack of mentality came through so quickly. Their heads dropped, the players lost complete belief, and there was no sense of feeling at any point after going 1-0 down that we could come back and get a result. And that's one of the biggest issues with the current squad. It's not the fact that we lost, to be honest. That's really annoying me. I think, it was always going to be a big task to go to the Emirates to try and get a result against the second best side in the league right now. But it's the way things capitulated in that second half. And we're going to look at the stats and see how literally the momentum, for example, just completely tanked. Also need to have a look at Ruben Amorim. Because the question is, did he get things wrong? Did Ruben Amorim get things wrong in this game? And I think he did to a certain degree. When I looked at that starting lineup and I didn't see Amad Diallo, I thought that, for me, was a very, very strange decision. And in the first 10 minutes of the second half, I think he created more and was more of a threat than any other player throughout the entire 94 for United. To have played the way he had in the last few games, pressed the way he had, and to be left out the starting lineup was, it beggars belief, to be honest, and I think really, really was the wrong decision. I thought Garnacho, unfortunately, didn't offer us much today, and I think that should have been the call in that first half. Timo Malacia, coming back from injury as well, doesn't look quite up to pace, and to have left Amad Diallo on the back of such good performances recently, I can't get my head around. I can't understand why he did it, to be honest, and, this was our big game. It was the time we were supposed to see the best team out there, and my gut says we did not see the strongest United 11. And that's really, really incredibly frustrating because why wouldn't we want to see the strongest United 11 out there? Why wouldn't we want to be going to the Emirates and having a go? At the end of the day, after that first half, you thought, right, well, we've got away with one, really, of getting into that halftime break, not conceding a goal. Halftime, you're thinking, right, 0-0, come on, let's go see if we can add a pressure. And to be honest, it probably should have been 1-1, really. Thomas Partey had to have scored that goal, but also Diego Dallo had to put that on target. And in a different, world, Partey misses, Diallo doesn't, and we go into, sorry, not Diego Dallo doesn't, and we go into halftime 1-0 up. And at 1-0 up, I mean, it could become a complete different game. I think the frustrating thing as well is two set-piece goals. Now, Arsenal have got the best corner in the Premier League at the moment. Got specialists in, and it's a very interesting corner routine. Second goal should have been chalked off, if we're going to be brutally honest here. Being trapped like bugs here. Should have been chalked off. I think there's a foul in there, and I think that a lot of the corners that Arsenal create, and a lot of the chances they create, the more you look at them, the more they are fouls, because they're basically just stack at the back, and then they're rushed onto. And as a result, they're coming into players consistently. The first goal, I think, was fair play. It was a good goal. That second goal, I think there was a foul in the build-up, and there were several other instances where you can see as the lethal header, the finishing header, the final touch is coming in, there's arms all over players. There are players, defenders who are being fouled left, right, and centre. And it's something that I think a lot of the refs have to start taking a closer look at in terms of the way that that rush into the box is being done, and the way that they are dominating defenders. Sometimes they're dominating fair, but a lot of the time they're not, and it's not being called out. And until it's going to be called out, they're going to keep getting away with it. And they're going to keep getting goals like that. I mean, William Saliba celebrating that goal for a header that came. I mean, it came off basically his hip. A quadriplegic would have scored that goal. In terms of the amount of the say and contribution he had to the goal. I mean, talk about the right man in the right place. To go off screaming like that as if you screamed a flipping 30-yard screamer. Yeah, but anyway, Ruben Amorim's going to have to account, I think, for a couple of things, and I think a lot of lessons learned tonight. And we don't want to be sitting there talking all the time about lessons learned, because that's kind of the only thing we do, isn't it? We're sitting there talking about consistently not being good enough, getting team selection potentially wrong, attitude, mindset, and the works. And once again, I think tonight we sit there with a lot of red flags and more answers, more questions than we have answers. And that was the thing we spoke about. It's all very well getting behind Ruben Amorim in the last few games. You go and win a couple of games, 4-0 against Everton. You're thinking, cool, we're on the right track. Games like tonight are really the benchmark, not beating relegation candidates. And not to say that 4 games into the job, he needs to be tactically outclassing Mikel Arteta. This is a side that put 5 goals on West Ham over the weekend and put 5 goals on Sporting last weekend. But it's the mentality from the players which has to be there, and it's just not there. And I think there was a bit of a defeat in Ruben Amorim's eyes, where he just looked in that second half, and I think he realized the size of the job he has. I think he realized the type of players he has, the way the heads shift, and how difficult of a job this is really going to be. And let's have a look at the shall we? I mean, conceding on the 54th minute and then in the 73 again. But, you look at the stats, for example, overall, possession, we had 50%. This becomes the issue. Almost 3 times as many shots Arsenal had than United. 6 shots on targets compared to our 2. Did not create enough chances. And that's something that has been the United story of old. And, 13 corners. To concede 13 corners against the side that has the best corner routine, basically, in the Premier League, is absolutely diabolical. I don't understand how you can think that we're going to get any sort of result if you're going to see 13 corners against an Arsenal side that has a corner routine like that. And, you look at, for example, has to do a lot more defending, for example, lots more clearances, but the progression, I think, from United wasn't good enough. The lack of being able to get into the box, the lack of being able to create and carve out those opportunities. And what's interesting is you look at, for example, the player ratings here on SofaScore, which is always quite interesting. The average player rating for United, 6.78. And interesting if you look at sort of the player ratings themselves, and some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. I don't think Andre Onana had the worst game. I think that corner is a massive pressure problem. Looking at watching the replay of that first goal. The first goal is really, really well worked. It's almost impossible to defend. You've got 6 Arsenal defenders that absolutely just flood the box. United basically have to zonal mark. And there you can see there's 3 players there, and it's Diego Dalot's out. And the only person that can potentially stop that goal is Rasmus Højlund if he gets his timing right on his jump, and the ball goes over his head. And I actually don't know if he gets a touch here. He gets slightly ahead of that and he stops that goal. That's about the only way. Is it a little bit of a push? I think to a certain degree, but there's a lot of pushing and shoving in there. The second goal for me is a foul. I think that's, for me, is quite simple. But looking at that first half team, a lot of, for me, issues in the way we set up. I think Garnacho offered us very, very little. I think Malacia is still not quite there. Mazraoui playing on the left there for, I think to try and basically nullify Bukayo Saka and to try and sort of remove that kind of threat. Don't think it really worked, to be perfectly honest. I think Mazraoui is under quite a lot of pressure. And I think the very simple way we should have set up is Dalot on the left, Joe, where Malacia is, with Ahmed down the right-hand side over there. And I personally still would have probably switched to De Ligt and Mazraoui, to be honest, and had Dalot helping out De Ligt, taking on Saka. And I think Amad Diallo would have offered us a lot more outlets, to be honest. I don't think that Dalot was particularly effective on the right, and Malacia struggled. And when they came on, I thought, Amad Diallo, you look at, for example, some of his stats, 3 dribbles, 2 successful, for example. He ground duels 1, 6, or 4 out of 6, got stuck in quite a lot. And you compare that to, for example, a Malacia down the left-hand flank, and it's just, his expected assist was 0.01, and the big thing over there is where are you seeing him having go? He had 1 potential dribble, 1 opportunity where he really tried to go forward. So that's, a big thing. You look at Amad Diallo, for example, and his expected assist respectively. It's just have a stat there. Where's it gone? Okay, no, it's gone there. But I think he obviously offered so much. A decent debut, I thought, for Lenny Euro. Probably one of the few positives. Had a very nice challenge, couple of nice interventions. Didn't look out of place at all. So I think that he is a nice. That was the only sort of positive of the day. Really, is the fact that we could get some minutes into him and see what he looks like. And I think he looked pretty solid. To be fair, the end of the day is we got it wrong. We really did get it wrong. You know, we had apparently beginning before the warm up, we're practicing the sort of the set pieces and how we're going to defend them, for example, and the way that Arsenal did it, and we very much changed the way we did. Obviously, having watched them, but we still just got it very wrong. And just looking on Twitter here, and really good to see that a lot of people are appreciate it. And have a look at exactly this was his first game. Yeah, I have a look at some of the stats over here from Yannier, and this was his game. So 100% aerial duels won, 86% pass accuracy, 75% ground duels won, 4 tackles attempted, 3 tackles won, 2 passes in the final, and 3 clearances. So yeah, a very good debut. I think that's probably the big sort of silver lining of this result is the fact that we managed to get him a debut, managed to get him out there, and he looked really good. Hopefully we can try and get some more minutes into him. I do think he'll become a pretty big mainstay in the side relatively soon. And yeah, and this is some of the positives. So looking at for example, how people are reacting, and I like the fact that we're going to try and be positive because we have to a certain degree. You know, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater after one bad result. But I think the big thing for me is I'm writing down the mistakes. I'm keeping track of the mistakes we're making in terms of certain players, you know, playing, in terms of the decision of the. So watching the second goal over here, and I still think it's a foul. Obviously, completely different angle from the first goal. This time coming from the right hand side as opposed to, or from the left hand side as opposed to the right hand side. But I mean, Saliba's pushed Højlund out the way a couple of times, and that's why he's actually in front of him. And I think Mazraoui also. There's 2 players on him over there, and there's absolutely zero chance. He gets pushed out the way, and then pushed to the right. So there's a lot of pushing that's happening in the box, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how the referee starts to try and police the set piece itself, and whether more and more referees might start potentially calling that, and yeah. But Axel was saying players can't effing pass to Højlund, no attack initiative, bad defense. How the hell can't they defend the corners? And I think they make a good point. That second half, and that's what I was saying earlier in the show, is you look at the first time. I mean, I think the SofaScore momentum shows it very nicely there. First half ebbed and flowed, but we had opportunities. That second half, all of a sudden, we just, as you said, we stayed in the change room, and this guy is a 30-goal striker. I promise you he is. I'm actually so certain he is. And the more I watch him, the more I think he is. But the reality is look where he's getting the ball. Not a single touch in the box. And that's not his fault either, you know. It's not like he's not getting a single touch in the box because he's not in the box. We're not getting those passes in behind. We had opportunities to try and counter, and then all of a sudden we kind of get there and then we played around a little bit. You know, Rasmus Højlund, not a single touch in the box. You then got a Marcus Rashford, for example, who comes on. Not a single touch in the box. Joshua Zirkzee comes on. Not a single touch in the box. It's ridiculous. You know, you look at a Mason Mount, for example. Not a single touch in the box. Garnacho. Like 1 or maybe 2 touches inside the box. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous how little we managed to get into that 6-yard box. And where was the initiative? You know, sometimes at the end of the day, if it's a bad cross, it's a bad cross. But there were times where you could see Ruben Amorim saying, play the ball. And that's to the centre backs and the midfielders, you know. That's kind of the whole point of this. The system is to pull players wide, try and pull them as far wide as possible, create the gaps, and then you got to play the balls into those gaps. You got to play onto the striker, onto the half turn. So Rasmus Højlund is getting the ball with his defender on his left shoulder, ball coming to his right hand side. He can take a touch and try and bang it. You know, where are those balls coming in? even if they're not successful, even if they're being cut out, Thomas Partey gets a man of the match performance, and you could just see where he operated I mean, that's the definition of a CDM performance. It really is, and the big thing I think for him, but I mean, one interception, for example, it's not like we were just rocketing balls through and they were being kept out consistently. We just weren't looking to play those final passes, and it's you go over here and look at our players' positions. What is that? What is that? How are we ever going to score goals? Compare that to Arsenal, for example, using far more width, further in between. And I mean, look, I mean, the only 3 players' average position was inside their own half. United, I mean, that's Rasmus Højlund. He wasn't even the first higher up on the pitch, by the way. It's been average position. Amad Diallo comes on and plays higher than anybody else has. Starts adding an outlet. You can Marcus Rashford. Not much change there. Basically, the exact same thing as Garnacho had. Joshua Zirkzee even further behind where Rasmus Højlund was. I mean, it's just, this for me is my biggest frustration. How does Amad Diallo have such good games and then you just drop him out completely? And look where he was. He was the most far forward player in the side when he came on, because he wants to get on, because he's willing to take on players, he's willing to have a go. You compare that to Arsenal, and you've got Kai Havertz, for example, Saka, who's living down that right hand side, Martinelli. It's just childish. It's absolutely childish, and you can see the decision that first of all, we loaded up on the right side. This is purely to stop Saka. There's a reason that this is the opposite. They load on the right hand side. That's what we had to try and load. But there was just no outlet. There was no width on the right side. I mean, I mean, Diallo, the problem with this is that Diallo then played in the second half, so that his positioning is kind of skewed. But it's the fact that we loaded the entire time on the left-hand side to try and shut out Saka. And it's very, very clear what we did then. You could just see the thinking there and what we were trying to do. But again, I look at that momentum and I just think that we had to have gotten more into the game and really had to go there. So I'm really frustrated at the fact that we just weren't brave enough. And you kind of wonder, will we ever be brave enough? Will we ever get to the mentality where we're going to have players who are willing to put their hands up and say, it's now tough. It's 1-0 against Arsenal. This is where we've got to grind down. This is what we're going to be remembered for. Results in games like this. It's not about how well you play against Everton on a Sunday. It's how well you can play against a good Arsenal side who have just gained points on Liverpool and put themselves back in the title race. Arsenal lose tonight, Liverpool win tonight. They drew 3-3 to Newcastle, and they're basically out the Premier League. That's how important it was for Arsenal. Now, for United, on the other hand, we go take a look at where this now leaves us, and where we had an opportunity to potentially really start getting ourselves back into the mix. We've completely lost that opportunity, because now we're sitting down, but we actually dropped. I think we were 10th, now we're into 11th, 19 points, and all of a sudden we're 7 points behind City. We were 4 points behind fourth at a stage. We're now dropped down to 7 points behind City. And I mean even over now with the 3 points, for example, we can only go level with Villa. So we've missed a massive opportunity to try and gain. The Premier League title race itself has become a bit closer, because Arsenal have gained 2 points. There were 9 points, they're now 7 points behind. So Liverpool dropped a couple of games, and all of a sudden they can put themselves back in there. And Chelsea are back in the mix as well. So Liverpool dropping points tonight was big. Newcastle aren't even having a particularly good season, and they're above us. This is the frustrating thing. And I've been trying to be positive for the last few weeks since Emmen come in, because I look at this table and I think it's such a close table. There's opportunities for us to move up, but then you miss on opportunities to win games. And I mean, you've got Forest this weekend who sit higher than us. We've got to go on a run now. Our next big game is City, I think, in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and we've got to go and pick up 2, 3, 4 games in a row, because we've got to start climbing up this table. We've got to put ourselves in this top 6 mix, which is not massively far away, but the top 4 is getting progressively further and further away. And unfortunately, until we until we start picking up results like this game tonight, we're going to continue to struggle to get out of there because we can't. There's not enough teams we're good enough just on paper and just by pure talent to beat. There's not enough teams below us at the end of the day. Back if you're sitting there and you're a City, even if you're having a bad time at the moment and they've lost 4 games, the most, more than one lost the entire season. But they're sitting there going, well, we'll beat Villa, we'll beat Forest, we'll beat, I would say we'll beat Spurs, but they didn't. But we're sitting there going, I mean, I'm looking at you and I'm suddenly almost thinking, right, well, we can't beat the top 4. We probably can't beat Brighton unless we play well. Forest, well, we should hopefully beat them. I don't really know if we back ourselves to beat Spurs. I don't know if we back ourselves to beat Villa, for example. And you start saying, well, where are all the winnable games? And this is the problem at United. We don't have a lot of winnable games at the moment. I don't look at this table and think that we can beat 16 of the teams. I look at it and think we can beat maybe 10 of the teams. I think all the teams below us, and then maybe a Brentford, you should be able to try and beat in the Forest, for example. But now we're talking about Manchester United only having 12 to 13 teams who we should comfortably beat, whereas United of old would sit there and say, right, there's only 2 to 3, maybe even 4 teams that are going to give us a hard time, and that might not be a necessarily guaranteed win. But previously, we would have thought about doing the double over Spurs, and that would have been Villa would not even come into the conversation with regards to, that's going to be a tough game. Yes, it's going to be a tough game, but we're going to go get a result there. And until we start seeing better performances against bigger teams, we're going to continue to struggle with this concept of being able to find teams to potentially beat. And I'm going to have a look at our fixtures over here in terms of what we've got. We've also got a Europa League, and we've got a League Cup coming up. But we've got Forest, and that's actually it's already then City. So we've got Forest over here on Saturday, and then we've got City next weekend, and then we've got 2 to 3 games. Newcastle at Trafford. Newcastle's a difficult game, but you're thinking at Trafford, and hopefully we can get a result there. But hopefully then these are the sort of the games we're now looking at, and it's not an easy fixture list. Bournemouth you should beat, Wolves you should beat. But City, who's going to really back us to get a result against City? Are we really serious? Do we really think that's an opportunity? Are we really going to be able to get a result against Newcastle, for example? But we have to. At the end of the day, we have to, because that's how bad of a start we've had. And we can't just write off the season. I think this is also a big thing. We cannot just write off a season. Despite how bad the start was, for example, we are too few points off top 4 and the likes to then just throw your hands up in the air and say, right, the season's done. Because there's still so much left to play for. And I think that's my big thing at the moment. We can't write the season off. We've got to remain competitive. We've got to keep grafting, because there is opportunity to still get something out of the season if we can play well and if we can start picking up results. So really, really disappointed in tonight's performance. Not so much the result, the performance. If we had played really well, they had 2 counter-attacks. Look, and to be fair, 2 set-piece goals, so they didn't score in open play, which maybe is a positive, in terms of us being able to keep them at bay. But where was our chance to recreate an open play, for example? And then when we conceded, where was the mentality to say, right, well, we've got to get back up and we've got to have another go? There wasn't that. And until I start seeing more leadership, and I include something like from Bruno Fernandes, I mean, he would basically, after the second goal, was pointing, saying, why didn't you guys go down for the foul type of thing? But I just don't see any players, when we go 1-0 down, when we go 2-0 down, putting their hands up and saying, come, up we get, let's go again. Where are those players willing to take responsibility for the result? Willing to take responsibility for the match situation and put themselves out there. And that's the thing, they're scared. The biggest problem United have at the moment is the players are scared of responsibility. And they've lost that fearlessness of, even if I make mistakes, I'm going to be the one to try and affect the game. I'm going to be the one to try and create something. The players at United are too scared at the moment to dare try and be the difference. And until we bring in some bigger players and mentalities, and we have that shift, we get players who are actually brave enough to stand up and be counted, brave enough to accept what the situation is, come to terms with it quickly and say, right, we can turn this around. But at the moment, we've got players who, as soon as you're 1-0 down, just look like deer in the headlights, and nobody wants to take responsibility. Everybody's too busy looking at each other. And until we start finding 2 or 3, 4 players who, when the chips are down, put their hands up and they're ready to start contributing, we will never progress at a club. And that for me is probably Ruben Amorim's biggest task, is finding those players and finding the mentality of it in the squad as well. It's not just a couple of players, but it's led by the squad players. But that's quality in the squad, and the quality of the players, the mentality of the players, that as a squad we're not going to panic at 1-0 down. You know, we're not going to sit there and say that's the game done. We're actually going to keep grafting. We're going to keep going after them and try and turn a 1-0 down into a 2-1 up, into a 2-2, for example. You know, but does anybody feel that we can do that? I certainly don't. And that's going to continue to haunt me and to haunt United for months to come, until we could try and turn that around, because that's been the problem at Old Trafford for many years now. It's not just a this season thing. It's not a Ruben Amorim thing. It wasn't even just an Erik ten Hag thing. It's been a problem for years now, where players are scared, and some of them, I'll say some of them are cowards. I think some of the players are. You know, when things are going well, they're there. They're in the headlights. They're cool. And as soon as the chips go down, then all of a sudden they just completely disappear. Axel would say, yeah, we are X points away from Y, but with the play style, we will forever be from anything important. Yeah, look, I mean, and the frustrating thing is, I think we're seeing tactically that we are getting better. I think we do definitely have an identity at the moment, or we're starting to see an identity. You can see that there was a definite plan in there with the way we defended today, but it's just not good enough at the moment. And I think the biggest problem is that even within the playing style, players are not taking responsibility, and players too scared to make mistakes to actually try and affect change. So yeah, we tomorrow is a new day. We'll have to listen to what Ruben Amorim has to say. I do think he got some of the team selections wrong, which is frustrating. But all eyes now on the weekend. Got to bounce back. Got to bounce back in the Europa League. Get ourselves to the next round. The big game now next weekend is City. So there's no reprieve for Ruben Amorim. He doesn't have a lot of time to get the system right. So yeah, he's going to have to try and turn things around very quickly. But please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We will be back live in the morning as we kind of look at the aftermath and start to look ahead at this weekend. But yeah, please do subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys all next.